Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name. Proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. For great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods. For all gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before him. Strength and glory are in his sanctuary. Ascribe to the Lord, all you families of nations. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due to his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth. Say among the nations, the Lord reigns. The world is firmly established, it cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad. Let the sea resound and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Let all creation rejoice before the Lord before he comes. For he comes. He comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples in his faithfulness. And Psalm 98. Sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made his salvation known and revealed his righteousness to the nations. He has remembered his love and his faithfulness to Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our Lord, of our God. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Burst into jubilant song with music. Make music to the Lord with the harp and the sound of singing. With trumpets and the blast of ram's horn, shout for joy before the Lord, the King. Let the sea resound and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Let the rivers clap their hands, let the mountains sing together for joy. Let them sing before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the people with equity.
Okay, so on the screen is where we're going to go with this today. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along. So we have this call to joy. Psalm 96 and Psalm 98 are often called enthronement hymns because we are celebrating the Lord as King, not just over Israel, but over all nations and all creation. These psalms are exuberant and they're filled with imperatives. Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing a new song to the Lord. Let the whole earth sing to the Lord. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. They remind us that worship is not a quiet, private affair, but a cosmic celebration. Advent is a season of waiting, but it's also a season of rejoicing. We wait for Christ's return, yet we rejoice because he's already come and we know he will come again. These psalms invite us to rejoice with our whole selves, not just with words, but with song and dance and embodied praise. Joy is not optional. It's a natural response to God's reign. And so we'll explore these three things. Rejoice because the Lord reigns, and with creation itself, and through embodied worship. And then talk about the joy of Advent briefly at the end. Psalm 96 says in verse 10, say among the nation, the Lord reigns. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. The psalmist is rejoicing directly to God's kingship. He's tying that rejoicing, the rejoicing of humanity, directly to God's kingship. And joy flows from that recognition that God is sovereign and that he rules with justice and that his reign is secure. In Exodus 15, after God delivers Israel through the Red Sea, Miriam leads the Israelites in song with tambourines and dancing and singing. Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Their joy is rooted in God's victory and reign. And then in 2 Samuel 6, we have the lovely story of David upsetting his beautiful wife, Michal, by dancing before the Lord for all his might as the ark is being brought into Jerusalem. His joy is so unrestrained and exuberant because the presence of the king is among his people. And so we know that singing is unrestrained, that it's enthusiastic, that it's filled to the brim with joy. But we might come from a more reserved tradition than Wesleyan, where the mere thought of opening our mouths in song in church, never mind swaying, as some of you occasionally do, and dancing like I do. But back in church history, the early church writers, we've got Basil the Great, we've got John Chrysostom, we've got Augustine, who spoke of songs in church, using the Psalms as songs. And then the medieval church happened and the Middle Ages, and hymn singing became the work of the clergy only. You had to be clergy to sing, and then you had to learn Latin because you had to sing in Latin. And the words were changed, and verses were missed out, and something became very routine and by rote, and it was by a few, and not many people could understand it. So there was a disconnect, and it was one of the many disconnects that we know about in the medieval church that happened between the congregation and the Sunday service. And then the Reformation happened, and hymn singing began again. The Psalms were encouraged again to be sung, all the verses, none missed out, and in the native language of the people. And then when the Protestants started, there was more singing. But it wasn't until the revival of the 18th century that hymn singing took off. And we still sing some of those hymns written way back then, Amazing Grace and Can It Be, and the one that we're going to sing at the end of this service, Love Divine. But is rejoicing different to just singing hymns on a Sunday because you have to? So when I say we'll all stand to sing, everyone stands up, and there's this compulsion to sing. Rejoicing's different. Rejoicing is because the Lord reigns. It's not naive optimism. When we say we want Jesus to come back and we'd love it if he comes back today, that is not pretending. It's not naive optimism. That is the truth. That's what we want. We want Jesus to come back, because even if we've just set new potatoes for Christmas Day or whatever we've done, we still want him to come back today, because it'll be so much better than what we have planned for tomorrow on this earth. When we rejoice, it is a declaration of faith in the midst of uncertainty. Israel sang after deliverance. David danced even before the ark was fully settled. Joy is both response and anticipation. And in our own lives, we rejoice. Not because circumstances are easy, because none of us have got an easy life, but because God reigns over our lives. Singing and dancing become acts of defiance against despair. They proclaim, the Lord reigns, and therefore I will rejoice, despite anything. So how does this apply to our lives? Well, when hardship comes, or we're faced with criticism or something that's just weighing us down, rejoicing reminds us that God's reign is greater than any human opinion. And singing and dancing can be spiritual warfare, because we push back against fear and anxiety with embodied joy. In Advent, we rejoice because Christ has come as King, and we rejoice because he will come again to reign fully. And then we rejoice with creation itself. The vivid picture in Psalm 98, verses 7 to 9, paints, it's just gorgeous. Let the sea and all that fills it, the world and those who live in it, resound. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains shout together for joy. I don't know what it looks like for you, for a river to clap its hands. No idea what it's like for you, but I know what my imagination is going to for that. Creation rejoices in God's redemption. In Isaiah 55 it says something similar. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And then in Luke 19, when Jesus is entering Jerusalem and the crowd is rejoicing with loud voices, and the Pharisees tells him to get them to be quiet, he says if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. Even inanimate creation is ready to rejoice. And creation rejoices because God's reign brings justice not only to people, but to the earth itself. If you go on YouTube, you'll be able to find a little video of where whales are singing with pulsar stars in the sky and other creatures, and they sing together and they create, or the sounds come together and they sing together the splendor of the King. It's an amazing thing that somebody got together with technology to hear pulsar stars, whales, and all creation singing together. Joy is ecological as well as spiritual. And this challenges us to see worship not as a human-centered activity, but in participation with a cosmic symphony. When we sing with rivers and mountains. Our dancing echoes the rhythms of creation itself. And so rejoicing with creation means that we are stewards. We are stewards of the earth that we look after. And as farmers in this congregation, you look after your parcel of lands well. But for the rest of us, we might sing outdoors, we might walk in nature, or dance under the stars to remind us that joy is bigger than us. Advent reminds us that Christ's coming is not only for human salvation, but for the renewal of all creation. I'm just going to turn to Romans 8, verses 19 to 21, just to read how Paul reflects on that. For the creation eagerly waits with anticipation for God's sons to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in the hope that creation itself will also be set free from the bondage to decay into the glorious freedom of God's children. Oh, I'll just go on a bit more because it's so beautiful. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together with labour pains until now. Not only that, but we ourselves who have the Spirit as the first fruits, we also groan without ourselves, eagerly waiting for adoption. And then my final point is that we rejoice through embodied worship. Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name. Sing to the Lord a new song. New song in the Hebrew is tehillah. It's one of the only Hebrew words I can remember every time I think of it because it rhymes with tequila. But it means to sing a new song that's never been sung before, that comes from your soul, from your heart. And it usually comes in a time of pressure, a time of pain. A lot of the Psalms were written in times of great, intense pain for the psalmists. And that's what a new song is. It's something that embodies us and that it is only then breathed and sung to the Lord. It's for him alone. It's not for to be sung around the world or anything like that. It is a new song that comes from your heart to the Lord's heart. Worship's not abstract. It's embodied. When we sing, when we dance, it involves breath and movement and rhythm and energy. They engage the whole person. In Judges 11, Jephthah's daughter comes out to meet him with timbrels and dancing. Her joy is expressed physically, not just verbally. And if we go to the New Testament, we go to Acts, we go to chapter 16, and we see Paul and Silas in prison, in chains, and they're not moaning, they're not groaning like we would. They're singing hymns of praise. Their embodied worship becomes a testimony of joy. Colossians 3:16 says, "Let the message of Christ dwell richly among you as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts." Now, the only time that singing is mentioned in the New Testament are those two places, in Colossians and in Acts 16, when Silas and Paul are in prison. And so you might think, as some other Protestant churches think, that singing is not part of this age. But songs of praise are mentioned in other places. James tells us, "Is anyone among you in trouble? Let them pray. Is anyone happy? Let them sing songs of praise." And the church in Ephesus was encouraged to sing and make music from your heart to the Lord. I wonder, did they not mention it much because they already had a habit that they knew from the synagogue, that sung worship was already a thing, and they didn't need to talk about it much? The Psalms encourage us to sing and to dance, and yet when we get to the New Testament, the only one dancing is the daughter of Herodias, and that is not a good look. Embodied worship matters. Embodied worship matters because we are not disembodied spirits. God created us with bodies, and he calls us to worship with them. When we sing and when we dance and we're in church or we're at home, wherever we are, it's not performance. This is not us saying, "Look at me." It's participation. And they remind us that joy is holistic. It's mind and spirit and body together. When Paul and Silas sing in prison, their bodies are confined, but their voices are free, and their worship shakes the foundation of the prison. And so embodied joy has power to transform environment. We can be reminded that faith is not only intellectual, but also experiential. We can break through emotional numbness, reconnecting us to joy when we use embodied worship. And this Advent, we're invited to rejoice with our whole selves, to sing carols, to dance with children, to let joy be visible. And so the joy of Advent. Advent is, as I've said, a season of waiting, but also a season of joy. We wait for Christ's coming, but we rejoice because he's already come, and we know he will come again. Singing and dancing are not distractions. They are declarations. They proclaim that the Lord reigns, that creation rejoices, and that our bodies are instruments of praise. I'm going to leave it there for today.